Welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping right into a high-energy deep dive of a text that literally changed the game for how we understand the world around us. I'm talking about Peter L. Berger and Thomas Luckmann's foundational treatise, The Social Construction of Reality. You know, if you've ever stopped to wonder exactly how our society shapes what we so confidently believe to be true, well, this is going to give you the exact framework you need. We're unpacking the sociology of knowledge today, and trust me, it is a fascinating journey.
Here's our quick roadmap so you know exactly where we're headed. We're going to hit reality and knowledge defined, sociologists versus philosophers, 3 intellectual roots, and then wrap it all up with Skeeler and Mannheim. Let's get right into it.
Okay, starting off with Section 1, Reality and Knowledge Defined.
We've got to start by peeling back the layers on 2 everyday words that we throw around constantly. First up, reality. Formally, it's defined as a quality appertaining to phenomena that we recognize as having a being independent of our own volition. Basically, it's the stuff we can't just wish away. To you and me, just walking down the street, reality is simply what is unquestionably there. Think of a solid brick wall right in front of you. That's real, right? You can't just close your eyes and will it to disappear. We all operate in this taken-for-granted reality every single day.
Now, sitting right next to reality is knowledge. And here, knowledge means the certainty that phenomena are real and that they possess specific characteristics. It's that absolute confidence we have that the world actually possesses the traits we experience. When you walk up and touch that brick wall, your complete certainty that it's going to feel rough and solid, well, that certainty is your knowledge. It's kind of like the unquestioned map we use to navigate our reality.
Moving right along to Section 2, Sociologists versus Philosophers. So, to really bridge the gap between our everyday assumptions and serious academic scrutiny, we need to look at this sharp divide between disciplines. Philosophers? They're on a quest for ultimate validity. They want to rip the quotation marks off words to find the absolute truth. They're asking the massive questions, like, are we truly free? But the sociologist? Totally different game. They're asking, why is this concept taken for granted over here, but completely ignored over there? Berger and Luckmann use this absolutely brilliant metaphor. They say the sociologist is permanently stuck with quotation marks around words like reality or freedom. Their job is just to analyze why one society fiercely believes in a concept while another doesn't. They have to remain strictly impartial. They aren't trying to figure out who's actually right. And this core empirical problem is captured perfectly by the authors in a great quote. What is real to a Tibetan monk may not be real to an American businessman. It's profoundly simple, isn't it? It shows us that specific agglomerations of reality and knowledge are tied to specific social contexts. What is an absolute, unquestionable, everyday fact of life in a Himalayan monastery could be completely alien or just totally irrelevant down on Wall Street.
So here's the absolute crucial point you need to take away. The sociology of knowledge investigates the processes by which any body of knowledge comes to be socially established as reality. Let me be clear. This discipline fundamentally does not care about ultimate validity. It leaves all of that to the philosophers. It only cares about the mechanics. How does a society build its taken-for-granted reality? How does it maintain it, and how does it pass it down to the next generation?
All right, shifting gears to Section 3, 3 intellectual roots.
Now, this entirely new way of thinking didn't just drop out of the sky. It grew out of 19th century Germany. Thinkers back then were dealing with what was called a vertigo of relativity. Basically, this sudden, dizzying realization of how drastically varied human thought has been throughout history. Let me walk you through the 3 distinct branches that formed this field. Step 1 is Karl Marx. The Sociology of Knowledge borrowed his really foundational idea that human consciousness is determined by social being. In plain terms, your social class and environment dictate how you think. Step 2, Friedrich Nietzsche. He brought this very cynical art of mistrust to the table. He highlighted how primal drivers, things like resentment or the will to power, actually act as the generators of human thought. And finally, step 3 is historicism. This emphasized the extreme relativity of perspectives, meaning that if you want to understand an idea, you really have to understand the specific historical situation that birthed it. Put them together, and Marx, Nietzsche, and historicism formed the exact, incredibly fertile soil that this discipline grew out of.
And that brings us to Section 4, Schiller and Mannheim.
Now that we've checked out the intellectual soil,
Let's look at the two guys who actually founded the discipline back in the 1920s. I want you to look at this stark contrast here between Max Scheller's moderate view and Karl Mannheim's radical view. So Scheller argued that society determines the presence of ideas, like it dictates when an idea can appear in history, but he said society does not dictate the actual nature or content of those ideas. Mannheim, on the other hand, he took a much more radical stance. He believes society determines both the appearance and the actual internal content of human ideation. See, Scheller was ultimately a philosopher. He was throwing a sop to relativity, basically just to protect his quest for ultimate objective truth. But Mannheim, he believed almost all thought, except maybe math and a few hard sciences, is completely and unavoidably ideologically tainted by the society that produces it.
Let's do a quick summary of Scheller's more modest framework. Fun fact, it was actually Scheller who coined the term sociology of knowledge in 1920s Germany, but he only intended it as a tool for philosophical anthropology. He argued that the real factors in society, the material conditions, merely regulate the conditions for ideal factors to emerge. He did, however, give the field one absolutely vital concept, the relative natural worldview. He pointed out that knowledge is handed to us by our society as a built-in, absolute order of meaning. It feels entirely natural to the person experiencing it, even if, historically speaking, it's totally relative.
Next up is Mannheim's expansion. Now, Mannheim's work, which crucially was easily accessible in English, became the dominant, radical standard for the discipline. It's what later American sociologists would end up reacting to. Mannheim pushed the field definitively out of philosophy and into a strictly sociological context. He developed the general concept of ideology, which basically meant that no thought is immune to social influence. He also coined the term relationism, asserting that knowledge is always from a certain position or perspective. But here's the fascinating twist. He placed his ultimate hope in what he called a socially unattached intelligentsia. He thought this specific group of intellectuals might be free enough from class interests to actually find some objective clarity.
Wow, okay, we've covered a tremendous amount of ground today, unpacking exactly how societies build what they know to be real. So I want to wrap up this explainer by turning the lens directly back onto you. If our knowledge is really just a social construction, well, which aspects of your own everyday reality are actually just products of your specific society? What concepts do you hold right now, completely without question, that might be entirely different if you were born in a different century or even just a different hemisphere? It's a pretty provocative thought, right? It takes this dense sociological theory and makes it deeply, profoundly personal. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and as always, keep learning and keep questioning your reality.